Hey Afronauts, I'm Chelsea Gaydon.
I'm Beatrice Winifred Eicher.
And I'm Jill too. And welcome to the Afronauts podcast.
Today we're going to talk about anthologies. So joining us in our discussion is Shari Pennant and Sami Ellis. Shari is a Jamaican-American fiction author whose work can be found in the multi-genre YA anthology Cool Awkward Black. Sami is a queer horror writer who will be included in the upcoming Black horror anthology, All These Sunken Souls, out this fall. We're so excited to talk to both of you guys today about anthologies. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we really wanted this episode to be a round table experience. So I'm going to start us off by asking everyone their favorite or latest anthology read. My favorite anthology is Mojo Conjure Stories, edited by Nalo Hopkinson. It is badass and everyone should read it.
I really liked, actually Amazon Original Stories is doing a few cool things with anthologies. They had a really neat science fiction one a few years ago called Forward that had a bunch of amazing authors kind of thinking about different visions of the future. And then I just saw, like literally 20 minutes ago, there's one coming out in January with a bunch of rom-com authors, an anthology all around like improbable meet cutes. So it's really cute. So they're doing some cool stuff.
Improbable meet cutes.
Yeah.
I'd say one of my favorites is Because You Love to Hate Me, which is a bunch of short stories told from the villain's point of view. And anybody who knows me knows I love a good villain. And just to point out, my nephew recently read Black Boy Joy. I gave it to him as a gift and he loved it.
Oh, that's so cute.
I would say for me, I really am partial to the anthology essays. So it came from out the closet, writing in color that's coming out. But if it's fiction, it's usually the collections that's like the best horror of this year or something like that. I like those too.
Sami said, don't waste my time, give me the best.
Yeah.
I don't have time to wade through the roughage.
I just want the cream of the crop. I don't need to. I'm not
Look,
here to like play around with y'all.
We all die one day. We gotta speed this up.
You gotta protect
We
your
are
time.
immortal.
Protect your energy.
Got it.
Spoken like a horror writer. That's great.
Okay.
For real.
So I have a confession. I have not read an anthology since college. And I think maybe for me, it's like, I want more commitment. Like, I don't know, like I want more. Like I'll read some, short stories, but usually it's like, I see it as like a taste or like a sampling, something that like it can redirect me to like more of the author's work, if that makes sense. But yeah, I struggle.
Who are we talking to? Was it LD Lewis? I think when we did an episode with her, we were talking about how short stories are like a buffet, like a sampler. I think that was her.
Yes.
And you just want
I want a meal.
You want a meal. You want to get into a relationship. You want commitment.
It's
you
a
want
meal.
an experience.
I would argue it is a meal. It's a meal of very.
But it's
like
boosh.
It's like sampling.
It's a charcuterie.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I might overeat,
very
but am I
charcuterie
satisfied?
board.
You want a steak. But I hear you, because like sometimes you read an amazing short story and analogy, and like as soon as an anthology, and as soon as you get into it, it's over. And you're like, wait, like I wanted so much more of that world. Like Shari, actually, your story in Cool Awkward Black made me feel that way. I was like, where's the rest of it? And so I totally feel that, where you're just like, that's it? Like, what happens now? So
like, if you're gonna break my heart, at least give me a little bit more.
Yeah. I hear that.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree with you.
It's okay.
Yeah, I love
it. But
it.
maybe this is just a sign that I need to try more samplings.
Absolutely. I will give you some recommendations because there's so many. I mean, in any genre, pick a genre: horror, historical, science fiction, fantasy. I mean, there's so many really cool anthologies that are like the best of queer. There's a one, I want to say it was Neon Hemlock, who recently had a We're Here queer. I want to say, don't quote me on that, but there was like a We're Here, We're Queer anthology that was really, really good. And I love seeing all of these different authors doing just like a little taste of something. You know what I mean? Just like a little taste, give me something, and then I can move on and get a little taste of something else. And then I can follow each of those authors. It is like a buffet, but it's like a buffet with like a website to reach the food you want at a later date.
Okay. It's like going to like a food truck. I mean? Like, a food truck.
The metaphor is like straining against the,
right? Exactly.
Like the pressures of reality.
Okay.
I like food.
That's what it is for me.
All right. That's fair. Well, Shari and Sami, both of y'all write novels in addition to the short stories that are typically found in anthologies. What do you like about short fiction? And is that writing process different for you from short fiction to novels?
For me, the writing process was totally the same. I'm a total plotter, so I went through the whole outline. I write longhand, so I pulled out my favorite journal. But I think for short fiction, I like the pacing, and I like the fact that it does force you to like condense the story and get to the point. And I really like that because of the fact that it's so much shorter, you leave so much more to the reader's imagination. And I just like that kind of open-ended stuff,
Yeah.
I definitely agree. I would say for me, my process is similar, but definitely very different in the sense that it's similar because I'm also an outliner, I'm a plotter. I do that for both short stories and long stories, but like the plotting is completely different. Like one of the things that I found out when I was writing my short story for All These Sunken Souls was that I can't write a short story if I don't know like what I'm trying to say thematically. Whereas novels, I can just put whatever, as long as I'm joking around and like free writing, yeah, mama, I'm fine. I can just go on with dialogue forever, but with short stories, like I can't meander like I typically do.
Yeah.
So theme is most important when I'm writing short stories. And I would say that that's also like what I like about them, because I'm the kind of writer that even though I do BS a lot and, just meander in my long stories, like one of the things that I like the most about writing is the themes that can come across and, a way to teach people lessons without, teaching them a lesson, if that makes any sense. A way to say, this is how I see life, philosophize with people without actually having to be like, it's bad to be racist.
It's like not as preachy.
Yes, exactly. So having theme be so important to short stories for me is like one of the best things about it for me.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
That makes perfect sense. That's like short fiction. Like I'm doing picture book revisions right now, and you have to make every single word count.
It's like 300 words. I mean,
matters.
It's like, yeah.
I mean, and every word matters and has to be written a certain way. There's a rhythm. You have to think about the whole piece with every word you say. And that is what I love about short fiction and about poetry, especially, that every word has to have value and significance.
Be very deliberate, like of your wording.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I forget where I heard it, but it was something about like the fewer words you have, the more weight they have. So it's like you have to make those fewer words like do more work and come across like, I don't know, they're like more significant because there's less of them. But yeah, that makes sense.
They gotta hit.
Okay, so I had a question about like the process of getting like published in an anthology. Could you walk us through like the steps you went through to get your short stories included in the anthologies that they were featured in? Like how different was it than like your independent work, I guess?
I can definitely go first because mine is very short. The editor tweeted, "Yo, I want to do an anthology," and I replied, "Please invite me."
Shoot your shot.
Yes.
That's one way to get in.
Shoot your shot, listeners.
Oh, that's really
Absolutely.
cool.
Love it. Good for you.
For me, it's kind of a lesson in not self-rejecting. So Karen put out a call on Twitter for a new voice for Cool Out Your Flat, and I was not gonna do it. I had no idea what I wanted to write. I was kind of reeling from some other rejections I had gotten, because you guys know as creatives, those never stop coming. And then my mentor, my friend, convinced me to do it. And I did it finally. And I sent the email and literally like put it out of my mind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
So you like
gotta
throughout your submission was like, you washed your hands of it and just let it go.
It's a
like
bummer
I
now.
didn't even expect it.
Yes. And with short fiction, like if you're submitting short fiction to magazines or like whatever, that is like the mindset. You have to be able to drop it into the abyss and move on with your life, because it will be a year. You told you
Oh my
originally
gosh.
you cannot sit on your ass the whole time waiting.
So sad. So Sammy, can I ask a follow-up question, which is like once you were in the anthology, because you hadn't like written what you were going to be, you know, the story that was going to be featured yet, was there like a planning process of like, okay, like Sammy, you take this genre, like I'm so curious about like how the editor like puts it all together. I don't know if you have any visibility into that process.
I am not a short story writer normally. I usually write novels, but like I have a lot of ideas all the time and I just jot them down. Like it doesn't have to be a full story. Like for example, I know somewhere I have a note that says like only the head was found. That's all it says. It's not a story. It's not a story. And you know, I don't know what it's talking about, but like thoughts like that. And for this anthology, when they invited me, and I was like, wow, I didn't know that was going to actually happen. I gave her like I think 3 of the short stories I already had. I knew it was a horror anthology. That's all I write, so that was completely fine with me. And it was one that was about like language, one that was about teeth, and she was like, "Oh yeah, do the teeth one." I was like, "Yeah, that sounds fun to me."
Teeth are terrifying.
What is it about teeth, man?
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. Ugh.
They do you? They that's
dental
how they
horror.
control you.
Cool. That's really cool though.
It's different. So I was gonna ask y'all what you were like, how you write short stories differently, but you guys already answered that question. What I'm going to ask instead is for those of us who read anthologies, how like do you read them differently than you read normal novels or books or anything? I know some people, they do them in like chunks, or they'll do like they'll skip around like stories that sound more interesting to them, or in whatever mood they're in.
Yeah, I hop around. I mean, I feel like depending on the anthology, like maybe if there's like an author that I like, I might start with them just to see what they're doing, you know. But you know, like because it is a charcuterie in our metaphor, you can kind of start with whatever you want, and there's no like order to it. You just kind of eat whatever sounds interesting. So yeah, I feel like I usually, unless it's like a blackout where it's like meant to be read in like a sequential order, right? But yeah, usually I just kind of jump around.
I do the same thing. It's definitely, if I'm in the mood for fantasy and it's like a multi-genre one, like seeking out exactly what I'm like in the mood for right now, and I'll come back to the other side.
Yeah, I don't feel bad about like, you know, like quote unquote DNFing. Like I'll come back to like whatever later, but it's like the ultimate mood read. So it's like if it doesn't like serve you, then like read another short story, then come back to that one when the mood is right. So
yeah, it is the ultimate mood read. That's a perfect way of putting it.
Yeah.
I don't know about y'all.
Chelsea's face. Chelsea's just like, what is
this is the expression. I mean,
what is wrong with you
on this?
No,
it's too bad this is a podcast, y'all, because the faces.
So the problem is, I my screen is so small. I don't see myself, so I didn't realize I was making a face.
But you can feel, you can feel your face, the muscles.
I just feel kind of foolish because honestly, that option never. That might be part of the reason why I don't
might unlock something.
I'm like a completionist, and also I like going like
and like
whatever that word.
know.
You know what the word is.
Not
Chronologically, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how.
That's
Yes.
interesting. Yeah.
And
Sequential, yeah.
to not do that,
Sure.
I just that didn't didn't seem to be a possibility. But
That's so real of you.
and also to
Yeah,
DNF
Yeah.
DNF a story, like you can do that. Like that
I mean,
makes
you
no
DNF
sense.
novels all the time. Like you can
Yeah,
DNF a
Yeah, we
short
talk
story.
about doing DNFing novels all the time,
Yeah.
Chelsea.
Well, remember that was still new for me. I'm pretty sure I only
Yeah,
started
that's
doing
fair.
that like
You're,
like
you
a
know
few
what?
years
That's
ago.
fair.
That's fair.
That you're right.
I used to
you're right,
always
you're
read
right.
it. I was like, well, if I picked it up, like I'm committed. Like
Mhm.
maybe I'm too committed sometimes.
I'm beholden.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh. Okay.
You're a serial monogamist.
Maybe.
I feel like we unlocked something here today.
Yeah, this is like a
Right?
therapy session for Chelsea.
But that's like half of all these
Like a
episodes,
microcosm of like. Let's unpack that.
Wow.
Sammy, what
okay.
were you saying?
Me?
Yes.
This might also help if you are
Hmm.
not a partaker of anthologies, but I don't know about y'all, but I don't really care about spoilers.
Hmm.
So one thing that I do is like look up reviews, and when people review anthologies, they literally just pitch every single story.
Right.
And
Right.
like, oh, this one's all about teeth.
Mhm.
like, oh, that sounds cool. And then I write like that's the one I read first. Like,
Yeah.
like I when it comes to reading anthologies, like I typically just look up what the stories are about
That's
and
smart.
just skip to the ones that sound interesting to me
I like that.
instead of reading the whole book.
That's smart.
That is helpful. You're right, Sammy. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Can I ask a question too? I guess for the anthologies you wrote, I was curious if you tried anything new that you haven't tried in your novels, right? Because it's kind of a shorter form, right? Like, is there anything that you kind of experimented with or would be interested in experimenting with in the future? Or was it pretty much like on brand for you?
I mean, for me, it was pretty much on brand, except for like, I do love a good cliffhanger, but I feel like I left a pretty big one.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I was like, wait, like what? I turned the page and was like, I'm sorry, what?
And for some reason, every time I thought of like not doing it, my brain just said leave the cliffhanger. So
That's great.
For me, I typically, so as I said, I'm a plotter, but I don't really follow like beat sheets or anything like that. I have my own like style and when and things happen where, and that's usually what I follow, but I basically threw that out the window when I was writing a short story because I was like, you're not really a short story writer, you're not that girl, so let's actually read what other people are doing and see how they're going about it.
Yeah.
So basically, I think I read like 20 short stories back to back and just like tried to mimic the structure of those, like summarize how the structure goes and stuff like that. And that was a fun experiment. I would never do it again, but it was fun to see like there is like, how the beat sheet is like it's into despair or midpoint, blah blah blah.
Right.
It's completely different when there's one thing all short stories have is an opening up of a new world. Like it's like for the first 2-3 pages, everything is normal, and then it's like the world opens up to some type of different reality. I guess I only read horror short stories, so that might not be the case for like a cute little romance story, but
some kind of experience. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So my short story for the anthology I was in, which is Death in the Mouth, it is out now. Everyone should go get it. It's very cool. The anthology of BIPOC authors. Anyway, the call really wanted. I knew it was called Death in the Mouth. And speaking of dental horror,
I was gonna say, yeah.
And and I was just like, I've never experimented with dental horror before because I actually am afraid, like that is an actual thing I have. I actually am horrified of like going to the dentist, and my friends know I'm absolutely horrified of going to the dentist. It's a problem. So like that was a really big thing I did. And I'm very proud of myself. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
You deserve
As you should
Thank
be.
you.
As
Thank
you
you.
should be.
Thank you. I was
That's
very
actually kind of
brave.
surprising. Yeah. So you got to stretch yourself a bit.
And you did, yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
And I
Because
had
you knew it
had
was
one
only
nightmare
for
because
like a few thousand
not
words. You're like,
bad.
you're like, I can do this
Yeah.
for You say you only had one nightmare. Oh,
Yeah, I did. I only had one.
It's like remind me of the that Rugrats episode. I'm a big brave dog. I'm a big brave dog.
Oh,
It's a throwback for anybody. I'm sorry.
But no, you're right. That is a
No, we
throwback.
appreciate that.
Chucky.
I appreciate it.
Let's switch gears and talk a little bit
From Rugrats.
From Rugrats to money. If y'all are comfortable, I'm really curious about like the business side of being included in an anthology. So like in a novel, when you sell a novel, there's advances and royalties, and you get, a portion of your advance up front, and then you get, other chunks kind of upon completion of different milestones. And then the royalties happen, once the book is out. I'm curious, how it works when you're splitting all of that money across, like a dozen authors, let's say. Like how is that different?
I can go. So for me, from my experience, so it's the same exact way, except it gets split. The biggest portion goes to the editor or editors of the anthology, and the rest split to the contributors.
Is it just like an even split, or is it by like page number? Okay, cool. I was like, is it like proportion of the?
No, and all the short stories, at least are around the same word count anyway. So
yeah, that's true. Cool. That's easy.
For me, it was like a flat fee, like half before the story, half, after the story is accepted. If that's not the case, whoops, I didn't read my contract that well, but I also get like copies, like advanced copies that's in the contract and stuff like that. But
that's cool.
For the most part, it's just like, like you get this much beforehand and this much after the copy edits are accepted.
Cool. So it sounds like the answer is, as with all things publishing, it depends.
It depends.
Yes.
Very much. Very much.
Okay, so our next question. So what was the most exciting part about working on the specific piece that you contributed to the anthology? Like, was there any part of the writing process or the story that you wrote that was unexpected or like extra challenging?
I think that for me, the exciting part was just like, it was really my first, I hadn't had like my book deal yet. It was the first time people were going to actually read what I wrote. And I think what was exciting about it, not necessarily like, oh, people are going to read my writing. It was more like, I am a very weird writer. I write very weird, I don't write weird fiction. Let's get that clear. I write the most normal fiction of all time, but I always like to end up in a bonkers place, So I was excited to see how people would handle the out there-ness of where I take my stories rather than the kind of stories that I write. And luckily I was accepted for who I am. But me and the copy editor had some duking that we had to do. But I'd say that was the most exciting part. I'm trying not to it's not even me not trying not to spoil it. It's like, y'all don't got context for anything. So I'm trying not to overshare. But it's just really, I have fun when I write stuff, and I just want people to have fun. And that was what I was excited about, horror lovers having fun, being like, wow, what a weird story.
That's awesome. It's like you want to be received as you are.
Yeah.
Yes. Received.
Feel ya. That's goals, for real.
I guess the exciting part for me was, like Sami, that was my first time being published, and so people actually reading my work. And the other thing was the idea just kind of hit me like a brick to the head. I was minding my business on Kev, no intention of setting a story in, and then all of a sudden I was like, what if all the Sailor Scouts were Black?
Yes.
Also nerdy, and then I just ran with it.
Yes.
As
I love
one
that.
does.
I love that.
Yeah, as one does. So I just
Yeah.
fell in love with the idea of Black nerdy Sailor Scouts. I was like, okay, cool, let's go see the world. Yeah.
I love that.
You got to like run with this idea that came
Yeah.
to you. Yeah. Awesome.
That's really cool.
I think that's another thing I like about short stories is that like you can just run with ideas that you're passionate about, but don't really have a vision for a full book on. Like
Yeah.
I would probably be bouncing off the walls if I got that Sailor Scouts idea. Like, oh, that's so fun, but I
right.
didn't write it. I never. No, like I would say that to me. Like, I didn't write that though. And a short story is like exactly what you need to actually commit to it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a
That's so
good
cool.
point. Short stories, like short fiction, is also a really good way to get a story out without having to do like a full commitment of a novel. Because that's obviously a giant commitment of time, energy, whatever. And short fiction is a way to get it out without having to do all the extra shit.
Yeah, I know at least a few authors. I think actually LD Lewis does this. She mentioned this in our interview with her. Sorry, I just keep thinking about like she was our short stories episode. So I'm like, hey, short stories, I'm piecing it together. She mentioned that like one of her most popular short stories that she published was actually like a vignette from her novel, kind of like about that character, right? So it's almost like a market testing, right? Like how is this received, right? It's kind of like an interesting way to see if there's an appetite for something out there.
Yeah, that's a cool way to think of it too.
I attempted to write short stories years ago, but they always like bloated and
I can't.
And kept growing. And I was like, oh, but what if? And I was like, I think I lack self-control maybe.
Yeah, I tried really hard. That word count is
Chelsea's
just
way too much of a Pisces to do short.
Yeah. I just gotta run.
And Jill's too much of a Cancer.
I know,
do you see this?
I have too many
Everyone's
feelings.
seeing this.
I cannot be contained in 5,000
Exactly.
words. The feelings are too big. The feelings.
Way too much water energy. Yeah.
Well, we've got one more question, which is actually, we've been talking a lot about your short fiction, but I realized we didn't give you guys space to pitch or, talk about your latest projects. Or Sami, you have a debut coming out next year. I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about the novels that you have in progress that you're looking forward to.
My debut novel is a YA horror book called Dead Girls Walking. I am proud of the little book that's going to be on the road on the market, but I would definitely tell anybody who sees my book, like every hateful thing I say about publishing, every insult that I say about agents came from this book. And when it's on the shelves, I want everybody to know that it's actually my village origin story.
Oh no! Oh no!
And now everything's all good, everything's all great. I always knew you would be successful, but
the road to get there.
The road to get there. So I love my little book, but it definitely, I'm never going to be doe-eyed about the industry ever again.
Damn.
That is so real.
That's cold. Is
That
your
is so
dedication
real.
is your dedication just like to my haters?
I feel that. Oh, I feel it. I feel it.
If y'all are familiar with Bethany Baptiste, her dedication in her debut novel is something along those lines. It's iconic.
I hear that's real. That's so real. Shari,
did you have something?
So I'm working on a YA contemporary fantasy that I'm super, super excited about, and a middle grade portal fantasy because I love portals. I have
portal fantasies.
Amazing.
Contemporary fantasy.
I hope they make a huge comeback.
Yes, we need more Black kids with portal fantasies.
We need to fall through
their own portal fantasies.
I want to go to
Absolutely.
Narnia.
We need to stumble into different worlds. Come on.
Yeah.
We're clumsy and curious.
We are. If we're anything, we are clumsy.
#clumsy and curious.
Exactly. Don't deprive us of portals.
I love it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Okay, so listeners, if you'd like to support this podcast, please share it with your friends. And Sami and Shari, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Shari Pennant, and on Twitter or X, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't
Don't
roll
give him the
off.
satisfaction.
On Twitter.
Yeah, right.
The Dead Bird app.
Yeah, the Dead Bird app, that
Fight
one.
it. Yeah, there we go.
And ShariPennant.com.
And you can find me at the Moosaf is how I pronounce it, but y'all won't know what that is. At TheMoosef, right? So that's all. I don't be on Instagram, you know. I log in, there's millions of missed messages, you know,
just log out.
Just find me on the Dead
Do
Bird.
not DM Sami on Instagram.
Okay.
He's tired of it. Stop
Thank
it.
you so much. That's why I came here today.
Just to get the word out.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming here, y'all. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was really fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.